Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're going to take on another one of those classic reels. This one coming from Kevin. This one is a Roddy. It's an 8250 RL, and we're going to see about this reel. Very tight in terms of up and down, so that usually means that it's old grease. And I did notice that the anti-reverse is not working on this, and I'm hopeful that the anti-reverse is not working because the reel is just packed with grease and it's kind of locked that dog in there. We'll find out. So I get started by doing a couple of things. I'll let you know that I do wear a protective glove on my hand to keep the greases off. I use a parts tray to put the pieces in parts. And at this time, while I'm taking the external pieces and parts off, I generally like to thank our first responders and frontline personnel for everything they're doing in order to keep us safe during the pandemic. Their efforts truly are heroic, and it's really appreciated, everything they do. All right, so we just removed the spool and the handle. I'm looking in here, we've got quite a bit of what I'll call sand or debris, and that may be causing the issue with the anti-reverse. We'll find out. But we want to go underneath first so we can remove the axle shaft and get into the rotor there and see what's going on. So to do the side plate removal, we're just going to pull the screws out. Looks like the driver is wrong. We'll try this one. That's better. 3 side plate screws. This is a good time to tell you to go ahead and take pictures along the way. If you can find the schematics for the reel, even better, but pictures along the way, like I'm doing here in the video, will help you to retrace your steps if you get lost. It's always an easy thing to get ahead of yourself, start pulling a lot of pieces and parts off, and then find out that your memory has failed. And pictures are a good way to remind you where you came from, and on the back side of it where you got to go to in terms of getting the reel complete again. All right, 3 side plate screws. This side plate should come off now. And boy, there you go. I was going to say that one's a little hard. Now, the glove makes it a little bit harder, but yeah, as I kind of expected here, we are just totally loaded in the grease. And that looks like what's causing this anti-reverse dog not to ride. I am noticing that the spring is in here. So yeah, this is just this is like plaster as opposed to a wow, that is some kind of grease there. All right, well, we're gonna clean all of this up. We're gonna see if we can't get the function back, and it may be a little bit of time, but we will certainly make sure that it is appropriate for what's needed to be done. So I'm going to turn the camera off here. Actually, you don't need to see me just kind of plucking all this grease away for a while, and we'll come back on when it's time to take some pieces and parts off. Okay, so that took a while, but we've got it working again. That's really caked and crust. I can't say I've ever seen something so glued down before, but that side's done. We'll move our attention to this side. This side, you need to remove the axle shaft to pull the rest of this for a cleaning. So I guess we're going to do a little bit of that, and then I've got a screw here that's holding that axle shaft in place, and hopefully it's just that screw and we can get the axle shaft out. Oh, and as I expected, quite full of everything, caked on grease. So we'll be doing some more cleaning, so we'll probably turn that off. Let's just grab this side out of it, and you can see pretty much the same issues here with the dried grease and the poor performance there. So we'll shut this off again. I'm going to do some cleaning. Again, we just got piles of this stuff that I don't know what it is, but it's cement right now. It's just totally caked lubricant. So back in a little bit with the clean frame. Okay, so I don't want you to miss anything. I took 2 screws out of the side plate carrier here. That provides a ridge for the crosswind block to ride. And now we got a crosswind block that's kind of intersecting with the gears here, but not moving very well, is it? So we're going to take that off. That should be in 2 pieces, but again, you can see it's just totally encased with grease. So it's back to cleaning. Okay, so there was really no question as to why that anti-reverse wasn't working. The lever on the side plate was stuck, and these were just totally jammed with dried grease. So there would, even if that lever was working, there was no way for that lever to ever get in there to hold those positions. So we've done a pretty good job of cleaning that. This little gear comes off, but it rides on the main shaft, and that's going to drive the crosswind gear that we took out before. So we've cleaned the inside, did a pretty good job with that. There's a little bit more to do, and I will do it before I end the video, but I wanted to move up top now. And the deep socket that's appropriate for your spool. You need the deep socket because you need to clear the bowl of the rotor here. Just do enough that you can take it off by hand. Then it looks like we have a keyway in there, so be aware of that when you're taking this off. And yeah, so this is the rest of what we saw underneath there, where I mentioned that it may have been an anti-reverse. I didn't know where the dog was at the time. But we can just see we're just packed with more of the same here. So we'll clean this off. We're going to do one more cleaning below, and then we'll show you how to reassemble this, and hopefully we'll solve the problems with this wheel. Okay, so the last piece that we cleaned then was the pinion gear. And boy, for only 10 pieces, there was a lot of clean time involved in this one. And it's going to prove worthwhile in the end for sure. And I think it's time for reassembly. So we're just going to finish this one little piece here. I just noticed there's a little bit of stuff sitting up top here, which I'm going to just clear out of the rotor. And then we'll get going putting it back together again. Okay, all right, so pinion gear was first up. Kind of do this in reverse order, right? We grab the pieces that we cleaned last and put them in first. And I'm going to use a fishing reel grease here. I'm not quite sure what that other grease was, but I do know that it was quite sticky and dry. In this case, I'm using Penn precision reel grease, and that's what I recommend, using fishing reel grease on all of your fishing reel projects. All right, you didn't see me take that pinion gear out, but that's the way it goes out. There's 2 shims up here that belong on the pinion gear. We've cleaned the inside of the rotor there, so now it's time for reinstalling the rotor. We have that big screw that goes up top, or nut. And again, start your nuts and screws by hand. That way you can be assured that it doesn't cross strip. And what I was doing there just was cross stripping. So you can tell that much easier if you're doing it by hand. Okay, when you got that down tight enough, it's time to put the big wrench back in, get that tightened, give it a spin. Certainly nicer than it was. Okay, now we're going to just kind of go reverse. We know we have the crosswind gear, which belongs in the stud below. Let's put that on. You need to get the grease on 3 sides here. The teeth, the front and the back. And we can set that into its place. Next up then is the crosswind block. Get a good amount in that channel there because that's where it's going to ride, and get a good amount on the back side there. And that's going to ride on the stud like that. Then we remember that we had that ugly looking piece of metal which is cleaned up nicely. That goes on to the side to hold those down. Get the 2 screws that we were using for those hold downs, get them started. Just like this. That's one. That provides the track for the oscillating gear and the block so that it doesn't fall out. So it's a relatively simple reel, but when it's all clogged up with grease, it's an effort to clean it up more than anything else. Alright, that goes in next. The gear cleaned up nicely. That's the Crosswind gear. Tie down screw. So we're going to make sure we get the grease onto the teeth. A couple of different places it's got to go. Teeth on the back gear. That's going to drive the oscillating gear. We can install that. Next up then would be the axle shaft, which we cleaned off. You want to just put a little bit of grease onto the axle shaft, not a lot. And you want to work it through your crosswind block until you can get to the point where that set screw belongs. This is the set screw that came out. Still a little bit of debris in there. It's just an issue the way that it all coagulated there. I'm going to use a micro screwdriver for that, just because of the limited clearance it has there with the main gear. And actually, if I remember, we can pull this main gear up a little bit. To get the clearance that you need. So let's tighten that one down. Overall, a nice, solid, dependable reel. Alright, that goes back in. On the back side of this, we had the tie-down nut. This is a reversible handle, so you can do this from either side if you want to make it a right-hand crank. Okay. I like to set this to the off position. And we're going to just slide that okay, and once you hear the case snap, you know you got it. I'm going to go ahead and grab a screw here. We won't go too far before we test to make sure that that anti-reverse is working. But what a nice cleaned up reel is, no doubt it should be working. We took all that dried grease out of those cavities where that anti-reverse dog is going to click in. And that should make all the difference in the world. We restored the spring, which was clogged with grease, and we restored the tracks that it was riding in, so we should be in good condition here. One more to go. We'll give it a spin, see how we do. Okay. Yep, we have our anti-reverse, very nice. Now we have it in the off position, so we're correct there. Let's go ahead and grab the handle then. Handle's got some chrome loss on it, otherwise it seems fine. Get that oh, what a difference, huh? Wow. Alright, last piece then is to look at the drag washers, see what we have in there. And just use a small screwdriver for that. There's a round clip here holding those drags in. It's kind of hard to tell what we have here in terms of washers. We have a hard fabric washer. So we're going to put some grease on that. These are stuck together, so chances are it hasn't worked in a while. But again, nothing surprising there, as we have dry grease throughout. Like, we have one on the bottom. I'm just going to leave it there. I'll go ahead and put that in. One on the bottom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure we get a nice coating of grease onto the metal. That way it'll get the lubrication onto the other one. The lubrication is there to keep the reels, drag washers, fresh so that they don't stick. So I'm using my glove as kind of a tool to do that. The middle washer is what's called the eared washer. Just checking to make sure it's smooth. There's nothing dried on here or corroded or anything. It's just tarnished. Not sure if we're seeing this. Last one then. A little bit more of the drag grease on there. Top. And the reason why I have that on a spool is there's a little outcropping stud that needs to mesh into the slot in the axle shaft, so it's easy to put these back on with the spool. Let's just go put the clip back in. And that's been quite an adventure, that's to say the least. This is your Roddy. It's a 8250. Ready to go fishing again. Wow. All right, I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it. If you want to see more, please subscribe. If you do subscribe, please hit notifications so that you can see all of the ones that I post. And finally, if you have a reel that needs to be repaired, well, contact me by the email that follows, and I'll be happy to provide you with that information. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.